A massive explosion ripped through the heart of Beirut in Lebanon, killing at least 100 people and injuring thousands. The death toll is likely to increase over the next few days as authorities are clearing the debris at the site. On your screens now are the latest aerial visuals from the Lebanese capital. These images capture the extent of the devastation at the port of Beirut. Much of the port was flattened as a result of Tuesday's blast, thus cutting off the country's major trade artery. The governor of Beirut toured the streets near the blast zone of the port explosion and spoke to the journalists there, saying that it could take up to 1 year to rebuild the city.
زلزال ضخم ضرب لبنان كلها وضرب بيروت فورا، وهذا حيكلف يعني مليارات الدولارات ليرجع ينعاد. الاقتصاد حيتراجع بعد اكثر واكثر لانه في مصالح كلها تضررت اليوم لترجع تقلع من جديد، بدها استثمارات جديده. نحن ما بنيأس. Speechless, really. I can't say much except that you know, we feel so sorry for the losses that we had. Of course, definitely, this is what we're all.
How long will it take?
It's easy. It's still early to say that because it's going to take
2 years.
Yeah, maybe a year.
Lebanon's president attributed the explosion to a stockpile of ammonium nitrate at the port of Beirut. Close to 2,750 tons of this chemical was being stored at the port for 6 years, and that too without any safety measures. Many commentators in Lebanon have rightly pointed out that this was a disaster waiting to happen. Video footage of the incident showing a column of smoke rising from the heart of Beirut port, followed by a massive explosion that sent up a mushroom cloud. The impact was felt kilometers away. Even hours after the explosion, fires were still raging around the blast site. Helicopters had to be deployed. Hundreds of firefighters were called in to control the blaze. Lebanon's president convened an emergency Security Council meeting. The council recommended that the relief work should be carried out by the Lebanese military personnel. 3 days of national mourning has been declared by the Prime Minister. Resources from across the country, including ambulances, are being diverted to the capital. Lebanon's cabinet will be convening later to form an investigative committee. The committee is expected to submit its findings over the next 5 days. The government promised strict punishment for those held responsible for the regulatory lapses. Reports saying that welding work near the warehouse may have triggered the blast.
ما حصل اليوم لن يمر من دون حساب. سيدفع المسؤولون عن هذه الكارثة الثمن. هذا وعد للشهداء وللجرحى. هذا التزام وطني. ستكون هناك حقائق تعلن عن هذا المستودع الخطير الموجود منذ العام 2014.
Residents of Beirut are on the edge. The entire extent of the disaster and the devastation caused will be known in the next couple of days. Clearing work is still underway at the site. Hospitals in the capital are overwhelmed by the COVID-19 pandemic as well. Late at night on Tuesday, hundreds of people rushed to hospitals in search of their loved ones who had gone missing after the explosion was reported. Hospitals have invited volunteers to donate blood and take part in the relief operations. There are concerns about the air quality as well, since the blast was triggered by a toxic chemical stockpile. The U.S. diplomatic mission in Lebanon has asked the American citizens in Beirut to wear a mask while stepping out. The incident has laid bare the shortcomings of the Lebanese government. Systemic corruption and lack of regulatory frameworks increase the likelihood of such incidents. And earlier, we spoke with Lebanese anchor and actress Karine Salameh from Beirut. Take a listen in to excerpts from that conversation.
The Lebanese authority are confused right now. They really don't know what happened. Too many stories are circulating, but to tell you the truth, we are under the shock as a government and as people of Lebanon. We cannot believe what happened in times of in a few minutes. The country is destroyed completely. Beirut is destroyed completely, and the authorities, to tell you the truth, are very confused. We cannot rely on what the authorities are saying because they are lost in their thoughts, and they have no base ground to rely on.
The port of Beirut is located right at the heart of the Lebanese capital. Hundreds of unsuspecting citizens were going about their day when the tragedy struck. Many eyewitnesses are comparing this explosion to attacks during the Civil War era.
I've seen war, I've filmed war. I went to in 2006, I went to the South Lebanon to see this, but it took 30 days to do the same destruction. We had it in one explosion. It is a catastrophe. I've never seen something like that. I was at home, which is very far away from here, and then I heard the first explosion, something that shook the house, and then a second huge explosion, and I was worried about my kids and my wife.
The impact of the blast was felt more than 240 kilometers away. Within the 30-kilometer radius of the blast, windows were shattered, balconies were destroyed. Witnesses recount 2 separate explosions within a gap of a few minutes.
قلنا انه مفاولة وشفنا ناس، شفت حدا مقطوشة اجره عم يفوت على المستشفى وولد صغير كله حاملينه كمان غايب عن الوعي كله دم، كمان قررنا نفل انه مش رح فوت على كمان حالة طفيفة على المستشفى فيها هيك حالات، فقررنا نروح على البيت وداوي حالي بفيرست ايد كيت.
That explosion in Beirut has been blamed on thousands of tons of the chemical used in fertilizers and explosives, ammonium nitrate. Over 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded after being stockpiled at that warehouse for over 6 years. As per reports, a ship carrying a similar quantity of the chemical agent had unloaded its cargo at the port in 2013. Several sources on the ground have said the first explosion could be the result of a fire in the nearby fireworks warehouse. Roughly 15 minutes later, the larger, more devastating explosion was set off. However, authorities are yet to release the exact sequence of events. Ammonium nitrate is an odorless, crystalline substance. As per researchers, it is not explosive on its own. Rather, it is an oxidizer which draws oxygen to a fire and therefore making it much more intense. Extreme circumstances are needed to set off an explosion of this magnitude, as per experts. Ammonium nitrate has been the cause of numerous industrial explosions over the decades. A 2015 warehouse disaster in the Chinese city of Tianjin killed more than 170 people and left hundreds injured. These include an explosion at a Texas fertilizer plant. This was in the year 2013. It killed 15 people. Another at a chemical plant in France in 2001 killed 31 people, but that was accidental.
Big fire.
However, the 2,700-ton figure is by far the largest, which would make it even worse than the 1947 Texas city disaster that claimed the lives of nearly 500 people. When combined with fuel oils, ammonium nitrate creates a potent explosive widely used by the construction industry, but also by insurgent groups like the Taliban for improvised explosives. Beirut's 4 million residents are still coping with the magnitude of the damage caused to their city, to their lives, to their livelihoods. Why such large quantities of that dangerous chemical were allowed to be stored in the middle of the city for years without adequate safety measures is the bigger question. Meanwhile, the Lebanese Prime Minister has also raised that question. He has vowed, meanwhile, to not rest until the ones responsible are punished. As a result of that explosion, the Beirut port has been reduced to a shadow of its former bustling self. By the government's own admission, Lebanon will need international help to get the port back up and running. U.S. President Donald Trump is monitoring the situation in Beirut closely. He offered condolences to the family members of the victims and said that America stands ready to help.
Let me begin by sending America's deepest sympathies to the people of Lebanon, where reports indicate that many people were killed. Hundreds more were very badly wounded in a large explosion in Beirut. Our prayers go out to all the victims and their families. The United States stands ready to assist Lebanon. We have a very good relationship with the people of Lebanon, and we will be there to help. It looks like a terrible attack.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also reacted, expressing shock and sorrow at the incident. He said the country's thoughts and prayers are with the victims' families. The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, expressed solidarity with the people of Lebanon. Relief material from France is being transported to Lebanon. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif announced on Twitter that his country is ready to assist Lebanon in this time of need. Even Israel has offered to send humanitarian aid to Lebanon, despite the ongoing tensions between the two sides. The country earlier rejected conspiracy theories that Israel was behind the Beirut blast. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson expressed shock at the scenes that were being witnessed. He said the UK stands ready to help Lebanon. Saudi Arabia also expressed condolences. The kingdom said that it stands in solidarity with the government and the people of Lebanon. Germany is working to provide immediate support. Officials at the German embassy in Beirut were among those injured as a result of that blast. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison also sent out a message of solidarity. He said Australia stands ready to provide all support to the Lebanese people. The Australian embassy was damaged in the explosion and one Aussie citizen was killed. While the Lebanese president has attributed the massive explosion to a stockpile of ammonium nitrate at that port, it may not necessarily be a straightforward case of accident given the country's checkered past. Tuesday's blast happened close to the scene of the huge car bombing which killed former Prime Minister of Lebanon, Rafik Hariri, in 2005. The killing led the United Nations to set up a special tribunal for Lebanon to investigate the killing. The special tribunal found compelling evidence for the responsibility of the Lebanese group Hezbollah in the assassination. Interestingly, Tuesday's blast came days before the long-awaited verdict in the trial at a special court in the Netherlands of 4 men accused of orchestrating the attack on Hariri in the year 2005. And now Hezbollah is a Shia Islamist political party and militant group based in Lebanon. So could Hezbollah be behind the attack? The answer to that lies on the way Hezbollah operates in Lebanon. The militant group has several bases and missile stockpiles in the city. So why exactly would Hezbollah target its own strongholds is the larger question. Moreover, Lebanon's political leadership has refrained from demanding directly that Hezbollah disarm, as this would mean disarming the Lebanese resistance and leaving the country devoid of any force capable of deterring its arch-rival Israel. And speaking of Israel, the border tensions have lately been on the rise, with Lebanon-Israel recently thwarted an attempt by alleged Hezbollah militants to infiltrate into its territory. Incidentally, the blasts in Beirut come amid those high tensions between Israel and Lebanon, and hours after the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a fresh warning to the Iran-backed terror outfit. So could Israel be one of the forces behind this attack? Israel has made it clear that it has no connection to the Beirut blast. Internally, Lebanon's economy is on the brink of collapse. The nation is experiencing political turmoil, which has been compounded by the effects of the global pandemic. Street demonstrations against the government's handling of the worst economic crisis since the 1975-90 civil war have become the order of the day since October last year. They were initially triggered by planned hike in taxes, but quickly expanded into a country-wide movement expressing condemnation of sectarian rule, stagnant economy and unemployment that reached 46% in 2018, and failures of the government overall to provide basic services like electricity, water and sanitation. The next piece of footage we are going to show you captures the horror of the massive explosion. A bride who was in the middle of a photo shoot was seen running for her life. Take a look.